Hi, I'm Darren Wood. Today I'm just going to demonstrate the Q mix in Cubase. That's the mix setting where you want to send your mix to someone wearing a pair of headphones in the vocal booth, or the band about to record live, and to set up their own fallback mix. Now in Cubase, you can do that individually, track at a time, which it can be very slow using a mouse in a piece of software like Cubase. Traditionally, you do it on a mixing desk and you tweak your Q send pots on the channel, and that was quite quick to set up. You just look at your fader, look at the pot, and sort of match the dB level as much as you could. And then when digital desks came out, a lot of the desks had a copy mix to Q, and that was just a one button press. Some of the multi-layered desks you had to do it on each layer. Some desks you could just press the one button and bang, and your bit mix was pretty much identical in the headphone mix. Cubase have tried to replicate this, and it doesn't quite work always how you expect it to. Let's have a look, and this is the mix setup. Now for this demonstration, I'm going to be using the Live Forever demo. You can download it from the Steinberg website if you want to have a go. Now before you do, if you do decide to use this version, make sure you turn off all the effects on the stereo output fader, because if you don't, your mix is going to sound different to the Q mix. So you'll be hearing something different in your control room to you actually will hear in the headphones or the Q mix. So make sure you turn all them off first. Once you've got it set up, it should sound the same, hopefully. That is. Okay, so let's just hide that again. So there we go. What we need to see the routing, and we also need to see the Q sends. Okay, so then you just click on one of the Q sends, and I think it's hold control, and you click on the routing, and you can see them both together. So we've got all our tracks, and we want to duplicate the fader positions into the Q mix. Okay, so let's just have a quick listen to the song. Okay, so normally when you're on the Q section in Cubase and you've got the mix on, this is the mix, what you actually listen to in your control once you go through to the headphones. So if you want to set up an individual mix, flick it onto Q. Now, obviously nothing's going into the headphones because we haven't got our Qs set up. Okay, let's just stop Cubase a minute. Now, you could very well just send the mix, but you've got no control over a different mix for the person performing in the live area. Okay, so if basically you wanted to change their mix, you'd be changing your own mix as well by using your own faders. So what we want to do is give them their own separate mix. So let's do that the way Cubase would want us to do it. Now what we could do, we could go individually to each track, and we could go to the Q setting. So you pick the first track, activate Q send, and then you could use default send level to put that to 0, and we want to put that to -5.57. so we can type that in, -5.57, and enter that. And now the fader and the Q send are at the same level, and then you got your pan position, and luckily that's in the middle. If it wasn't, you can adjust that as well, so the headphone is getting the same pan position as well. Now obviously track by track or fader by fader, going all the way through on this song, we've got, according to this, 33 to do. That's going to take some time. So what we can do, let's just deactivate that a minute. There's another way to do it, which is select all the tracks. So select all the tracks, and then in the Q section, if you just right click, you can go from selected mixer channels we can enable Q-sends first because we have to turn them on. Okay, so they're all on now, and then we click in the same place again, right click, and from selected mixer tracks we can use current mix levels. So that's the fader levels in your mix, and you can see they've just jumped up. If we, that's minus 4.11, and let's go down and minus 4.11. So that's copied that. Now some of the tracks might be panned, so we want to copy the pan setting as well. So again, we right click and we go from selected mixer channels again, and we use the current pan settings. And as you can see, that's changed as well. At this stage, you would think that's so quick. It's just copied all my mix channels and set them to the cues. Now that's great for the artist who's waiting to record. So let's have a listen to see what that's done. So okay, so first we're going to check it on the our mix and compare it with the cue mix. Okay. Okay, this is our mix, cue mix. Our mix. And cue mix. Okay, this says something's wrong instantly. So just selecting all the channels and copying that doesn't work. Now there's a reason for that. Now if you've tried this with the Cubase Live Forever demo, you'll come to the same as me. It doesn't work because of the way the mix is set up. So let's carefully look at the mix. Let's just have a look from the first fader. As you can see, in this mix you've got bass drum in, bass drum out, then you've got a bass drum group track. Now let's look at the bass drum in, and the output routing of that is being sent to a group called bass drums. Okay, and on the bass drum out, that's also being sent to bass drums. So let's go to this group track, the bass drums group track. So it's being sent to there. So these cue sends don't want to go to our headphone mix because they're not going to our main mix. They're going to the bass drum group track. So we need to deactivate them. So deactivate and deactivate. So let's just check our bass drum group track, and that output isn't going to the mix neither. That is actually going to the drum group track, so we need to deactivate that as well. So deactivate. Okay. And unfortunately the whole mix has been set up like this, and now people do mix like this. I sometimes mix like this. So what it means is the actual cue send way of copying the channels and send it to the vocal or the person performing doesn't really work, which is a shame, because when the performer's waiting to go, you know, you need to set this up quickly normally, so that it should work a bit better. So let me just quickly go through and do it a quicker way. So the quickest way to do this, instead of going one by one, is actually, let's start again. Disable cue sends. Has that done it? Because I haven't selected all the tracks. Okay, so let's quickly go through. Can you see how cumbersome this is? Okay, you have to select all the tracks first. Just make sure they're all selected. Okay, go to from selected mix channels, disable cues. But also what we want to do is change cue levels, and we want to make sure they've all been turned down as well to nothing. Okay, so now let's work on a track at a time and make sure we get the right one. So what we're looking for is actually, we're looking backwards. Normally you start at the source of the signal and you go through to the end of it, so through the signal chain. So at the end of the signal chain we want to look at this time, and we want to look at our stereo mix. So obviously the routing, if it's got a name on it like bass drum or anything like that, we don't want to send that to our headphone, our cue mix. So here we go. Let's quickly scan through these and have a look until we can see our our mix itself and what's going to it. So let's have a look. These are all drums, ambient drums. Oh, stereo. So this is actually our mix. So we need to select that channel. Okay. And there's another one. So we select that one as well. And guitar, and there's another stereo one. That's going to our mix. Oops, I've done that wrong. Let's do that again. Should press Control. Okay. So we're doing Control and click to make sure they're selected. So again, it's a little bit cumbersome where working this, but it just saves you doing it manually. And there's another stereo. Okay, lead vocals, and stereo again. So click that one with your Control obviously pushed as well, and stereo for the effects. So we've only got a few channels there. Okay. So what we can do now is then go to select from mixer channels, and these are the only ones that are being routed to our stereo mix. We're going to enable them sends. Again, we're going to go from selecting mixer channels. We're going to use current mix levels, and let's just make sure the pans are set the same. So I use current pan settings as well. So hopefully, if I've done this right, when we switch between the mix and the headphones, the cues, it may or it should sound the same. Okay, let's have a listen. Okay, this is our current mix in our control room. And here's our cues. Okay, so what we can do now, we could turn the vocal up in the control room. That's not being altered, but on the cue mix, it's different. No time to hesitate, it's all been done. You wanna have it, you can get it. Okay, cue mix, I'll turn the vocal right down. But in the control room, it's there still. Okay, so that's how you settle your cue sends. Now, as you can see, it's a bit cumbersome. So how could Steinberg make this better? Well, for one thing, it could instantly select the mix bus and send that only to the headphone mix by basically find out which channels are set to the mix bus and send them only to the headphone mix. Now, if we look in the devices section and we look in VST connections, and obviously we've got our studio on because okay, and this is my monitor. This is going to my speakers, but the output is set as stereo, and that's what we're routing to in our routing section for each channel. For instance, yours might be called something else. Yours might be called actually mix, so you could change the name. And if you look in the routing section of the channels, that now says mix. So yours could be called anything really, depending what you've named yours. But the most important thing is there's a little red speaker next to it, so we know is going to the mix bus. So it could be ST left, right, stereo left and right, and that appears there then. So it could be anything. So what could happen then? So basically, Steinberg could redesign this so you can right click on here and select all channels that are going to the mix bus, and the same button could actually select all channels going to the mix bus, activate cues, and copy current mix levels. What you could just have a button that says copy mix levels and pan positions with a little tick box. So if it's not ticked, it doesn't copy the pan. If it is ticked, it copies the pan. So it could be made a lot simpler. In fact, there could be some buttons in this section where you click it. So it's copy mix channels to cue sends. and copy mix channels, pans to Qsends, just 2 buttons. I think that would be a simpler way to do it. I mean, the thing that's messed this track up again is the group sends, the group tracks, and people do use group tracks. If you've got a complicated mix like this one, it's going to throw you a little bit until you actually go individually and find which tracks are going to your mix. So just to round off, if Cubase would tweak this a little bit, so we could actually select the tracks that are going to our mix bus, or even just have a button, because obviously Cubase knows which tracks are going to the mix bus because it's already wired up that way. So you can just click tracks to the mix bus, copy to Cubase, copy levels to Cubase, copy pan levels to Cubase, activate Qsends as well. You could have that, maybe just 3 buttons there, or maybe 1 button that does it all. But I mean, this right clicking and going through menus, then it's a bit cumbersome, especially with a mouse. And I imagine if you're ever going to make Cubase touchscreen compatible, really you do need buttons. I mean, this actual control room section is really nice, and I think a couple of extra buttons in there would make it a lot better. One other criticism or nag is this volume here. You can't double click on it and reset it like you can, say, a fader level, where you can just put a 0 in. For some reason, I haven't found it anyway. There's no number here, and there's nothing to reset that to the right level. Okay, well that's all I wanted to say. If you'd like to feedback below and sort of let me know how you use Qsends, or maybe you don't use it, or maybe you get a little bit frustrated with it like I do sometimes, or maybe you've got a better way of implementing this, let me know. Okay, thank you. I'm Darren Wood, and thank you for watching.